There is no greater tyranny than that which is perpetrated under the shield of the law and in the name of justice. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today revolves around reforming the justice system in Sri Lanka and the challenges that lie ahead. We've invited four eminent personalities today on the show. All of them are President's Counsels. Let me quickly introduce them to you. Joining us this evening on the show are Attorney at Law, President's Counsel Maithri Gunaratne, Attorney at Law, President's Counsel Geoffrey Alagaratnam, Attorney at Law, President's Counsel Upul, Jayasuriya, as well as Attorney at Law, President's Counsel Nigel. Posing questions with me this evening, on to my immediate right is Shiharanis, independent journalist. You too can join in as far as the conversation is concerned. The number to send in your WhatsApp messages is 076 656 5353. The number once again, 076 656 5353. Let's get the ball rolling today with President's Counsel Maithri Gunaratne. Maithri, during the recent past, especially after this government took office, there has been many shootings in Sri Lanka. What's the reason behind this? Is there a collapse in the rule of law in the country?
More than the rule of law, Samir, it's the police investigations and their ability to crack down this has failed very badly. They have not been able to apprehend any of the, any or most of them who have shot and caused this damage. So I feel the police department has a major role to play, because the investigations are done by them, and after the investigations are done only they bring it to court, and the court will only assist in the investigation to apprehend the suspects and do whatever the necessary checks and balances which are required. So I feel more than the judicial system or the legal system, it is the police who are incapable of tracing these people. And today it's a very pathetic situation. The police are only relying on mobile communication data and CCTV cameras. Now, in the good old days, there was no mobile data or tower details, and there was no CCTV cameras fitted everywhere. The police, on ability and on their expertise, they were able to crack down many difficult cases. But today, with all this, with all the modern technology, they have not been able to apprehend most of these people. They are shooting at their own will. There is no intelligence coming. Otherwise, normally they get intelligence. There is no intelligence coming. So generally, there is a breakdown of the police department and their ability to investigate.
Maithri, now if you look at how things pan out as far as the country is concerned, the state intelligence apparatus does a big role.
Yes.
There is a very big role in any country. However, in Sri Lanka, during the recent few months, we see a collapse in this as well. What's the reason behind this? Is it because the government has not been able to take full control of the state intelligence apparatus as well as the security forces as well as the police?
No, I think, Samir, the main reason is those who are engaged to do a particular job, they are not passionate about what they are doing. They are not serious about what they are doing. They are doing it for the sake of doing a job. Now, for instance, if you take the Easter bomb, now Easter bomb, the information came to the SIS, the State Intelligence Services, about 18 days prior to the attack. Now, once this information came, they were photographing it for about 4 or 5 days to see whether it is authentic or not. Now, there was no need for anyone to photograph, because 18 months before that there was a run up to this incident. Bicycles were being blown off, weapons were being stolen, training camps were discovered in places like Eluwan Kulama and things like that. So there was a clear organization building up. What do you call organization, like it's a ISIS type of operation which was building up, and it was in the light of that this information came. So in the light of that, when this information comes, there is nothing for them to photograph. They should have immediately acted upon that. Now, SIS, the State Intelligence Services, they were wondering whether this is correct or incorrect, or they were guessing. And after that, what happened was they sent the report to the Defence Secretary, and the Defence Secretary, what he did was he sent it to the IGP.
So my question to you now is, Maithri, now you've been in the legal fraternity for a very long time. Do you think that this incident, which happened a few years ago on the 21st of April, Easter Sunday bombings, is politically motivated?
Well, that is only speculation, Samir. I mean, absolute speculation. To date, they have not been able to lay their finger on any particular person. They are guessing. So I don't want to guess. And it's not fair. But what I'm saying is, I have appeared for Mr. Maithri Sirasa in the Presidential Commission. So I was aware of what happened there, and what evidence which came there, and I overheard all the main witnesses coming and giving evidence. It is a basic security failure. If the SIS and if the IGP took this information seriously, this could have been easily averted. Because I know now the information, this is same information had gone to, at that time, DIG Latif, who was in Colombo. Now, he had been informed that the Indian embassy was going to be attacked and some other place. He had moved the STF there and protected.
So there is talk about sonic. These two words have already come into play. Who is this person?
No, they are talking about, referring to Sonic. Sonic is the Director, State Intelligence Services. Now, he was also responsible when the war was going on, Samir, in setting up the State Intelligence Services and defeating the war. So his name, he would have. They were using code names when they are working as intelligence officers. All of them go and they are using code names. So I think it's I can't remember this gentleman's name now.
Suresh
Saleh. He was referred to apparently as Sonic. So they are saying that it is Sonic. This name has come up, but there is absolutely no evidence to take it up to that point, Samir.
No, but it seems, Maithri, that the Cardinal knows something, because every year on the 21st of April, when the commemoration happens, he always brings out a revelation.
No,
he says these recommendations have to be followed.
Not only the Cardinal, even the President was aware, and he was going to name the person on the 21st of this month.
But,
and what did he do?
Happened.
He went and gave the Easter Commission report to the CID. I mean, he should have done it when he came into power. Why did he keep it for 6 months or 7 months? So this is all, they are trying to hoodwink the innocent people and show that there is some, master brain in this.
But will we see some light end of this tunnel that we are facing in terms of finding clarity and closure to what happened on the 21st of April?
They should have found the evidence against the SIS and the IGP who failed to carry out those the reports which were submitted to them. If they had acted on those reports, nothing of this sort of would have happened.
Now, several individuals have been asked to pay fines to those victims.
Yes.
Example, you appeared for Maithri Sirasa, and he had to pay up to a tune of approximately 100 million.
Yes.
My question to you is, what is the next course of action?
There is no next course of action
in the legal framework in a situation like this.
I can't see a next course of action, because most of them they were prosecuted, they were acquitted. There was no evidence against them. The Mr. Maithri Sirasa's matter, the fundamental rights application which was filed by some of the victims, the Supreme Court decided that this is going to happen. So that was a decision of the court, and he has paid it. That has been paid. But other than that, now President has given this report to the CID. What can the CID come up with? Already they have investigated. I am appearing for some of the Easter Sunday, some of the suspects in the High Court of Puttlam. There isn't an iota of evidence. It is all a fabricated case. The police to shoved their misdeeds under the carpet, they fabricated a
So
case.
my question to you is, I've been closely watching this story over the last few years, Maithri. Now, there were two boys who went to a Colombo Popular School, who was a businessman's son. And the businessman, in fact, was in the national list of the JVP for some time as well on the list. My question to you is, what motivated these individuals? Because they were very rich, they had the money. What sort of actions would have motivated these individuals to blow up on the 21st of April 2019?
No, when you asked me what motivated them, Samir, all these IS types from all parts of the world, who you know that at that time they went to Palestine or some place to go and join and fight in the war. All of these people were not fellows of poor backgrounds. They were people who were technocrats, who were computer guys, who were educated people. So I think they have been maybe brainwashed into some kind of extremism. And it is that extremism which pushed them to go and join these movements and get involved with this.
So in other words, you're trying to say this is an ideological issue that cropped up and nothing else.
Definitely.
So if that's the case, why is it being politically handled in Sri Lanka right now? You see Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit speaking about this. We see President Anukumar Dissanayake speaking about it. We see even at press briefings, Nalinda Jayasuriya, who is a cabinet spokesperson, talking about this. Why is it politically motivated? Are they trying to hoodwink the general public?
Definitely. That is what is happening, has been happening right throughout. They are hoodwinking the people, and the people are letting themselves to be hoodwinked over and over again. Over and over again.
So, in your opinion, there won't be any resolve to this issue?
No, it's done.
That's it?
That's it.
So there won't be any one who will be prosecuted or put behind bars?
I don't think. It has now gone past that stage. The person who should have been prosecuted is the IGP, because he is responsible for the security of the people of this country. And if he was off the hook, that is, the charges were wrong and he was off the hook, then that's the end of that.
Right. Thank you very much, Maithri Gunaratne, President's Council. I now move my attention towards Geoffrey Alagaratnam, President's Council. Geoffrey, when we speak about reforming the justice system in the country, one of the biggest issues that we face right now in Sri Lanka is a delay in finding a concrete solution or concrete judgment on matters. Most of the issues that are put in Supreme Court or Court of Appeal, or most instances in which we have seen, these take long years. What's the reason behind this? We've not seen any resolve to this over the years. Respective governments have come into play. We've seen how Minister of Justice at that time, President's Council Ali Sabri, said that there will be a system in which these law cases will be expedited. Nothing concrete happened. It was only mere words. Now we have a minister who is the Justice Minister, who is an attorney at law as well. He speaks about expediting the processes as well. But will we see some sort of resolve to this issue?
My problem is, I think it's first of all the people who work the system. That is what's foremost. You can have all the laws in the country, as I think Mark Fernando said in one of the fundamental rights cases. What we need is good people, capable, competent, committed people to run the system. Of course, our system requires a lot of overhauling but I think Upul knows during his period as the president of the Bar Association, and even during my period, there was so much of reforms that were brought towards expediting the judicial process. But none of those, very few have seen the light of day. One of the central things I find is we need capable, competent people of integrity who are committed to it. And for this delay, I blame it's not only the judges, it's the lawyers, the litigants and the court. All have to be. So that if you have to put in a proper system, first of all, one of the things we have got to accept is there is inevitable delays and there are alternative methods. We talk of alternative dispute resolution. We talk of mediation, conciliation. Does everything have to go to courts? The second thing is, aren't there methods of putting in place judicial audits to make sure things are done properly? Do we get the best people as judges who are committed? Are they entrusted with the administration which they can't handle? Do we need modern technology? All those have to be looked at. Time frames. We find judges retiring without writing judgments. And you have to re-argue the thing.
Yeah.
You find even at the lower courts, judges
promotion without writing the
judgments.
earlier court.
Then you find lower courts, you find judges are promoted while cases are not concluded. And a new man has to come to grips with it. So the whole system has to be overhauled. And I think for that, we are talking about IT. We are talking about AI. I think very soon AI is going to replace us. That's what I fear. It will replace the system. It might be able to better predict how judgments are going to come out. It might be able to better counsel clients. So unless we look sharp and go that way, one of the things I find lacking is, I think now Ali Sabri during his period he increased the number of judges in the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. It's not the quantity, it's the quality of the people. You need people of competence, integrity who do a work, because we have failed to realize that the judicial system and the legal profession renders a service. They're both interlinked. If they don't work together, nothing's going to happen. And I think the lawyers are to blame, maybe the judges are to blame, and maybe even the competence of the court staff. We have computers, sometimes the computers don't function, you can't get your proceedings. Now if you have voice-sensitive recording of proceedings, you don't have to say, I haven't got the last day's proceedings, I can't continue, postpone the case. Right? So all those things are there. It's how you use it. It's
Right.
the
So
will.
I want to drag your attention, Geoffrey, because you also former president of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. I want to drag your attention to the incident in which a female lawyer, was found contempt of court by a judge in Puttlam, and this was suspended by the Court of Appeal. But if you look at it, the court looked or heard this petition Court of Appeal on a day that was not, they were not working. The president of the Bar Association, Jayasuriya, was present. They went and filed a case. The Court of Appeal was summoned, and they took up the case. Now, would something of this sort happen to an ordinary citizen of the country?
That has been the question.
Yeah.
Saying,
My question is, because she's a lawyer, she was lucky. But there has to be equity right throughout, and that's what the law is all about.
I think it's a good start, Shankar.
That's right.
It's a good start. Because they have now opened the gate. So this will not be the first, maybe the first, but it will not be the last.
Yeah.
I can give you one instance.
No, I'll come back to you.
Yeah. No, one instance in
I'll
India.
I'll come back to you in your round. But I just want to pick Geoffrey's brain on this. Would this have happened if it was Sirasa from Akkarepattu or Polonnaruwa?
it should happen.
It should happen.
It should happen. It should happen. If it's depending on the gravity. Of course, usually you do not function on a public holiday because it's considered a DS a non-existent day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is one of the criticisms against the bar for having spearheaded this move to get these unfortunate judges also to sit on this day. But if that is so, it should apply to everybody.
No, I think it's a good start.
It's a good start.
Because now, if there is an issue like this, you can inform the registrar or the court and get this matter called. So that's a good
So it's a
way
good precedent
I
to
think,
start off
definitely.
with. Right. So, Geoffrey, now we've spoken a lot about constitutional reforms in Sri Lanka. We saw the manner in which how in 1998, how the constitution was burned in Parliament by the then opposition. Since then, we've not really had any concrete document to say that we are looking for proper reforms as far as the constitution is concerned in the country. Do you see some will from this government? Because in their mandate, they very specifically specify that a new constitution will be brought forth. Do you see the will from this government to do so?
At the moment, there's very little talk about it. That's unfortunate. But they pledged to. Of course, everybody says it's too early to expect the government to deliver on that. But I would think that it's high time the government got moving, especially on the abolishing or curbing the powers of the executive president. That's foremost. That was one of the things that was spoken of from the election platforms, which has gone silent for the moment. But as far as constitutional reform is concerned, I think the SJB had a very good draft. There were several drafts towards the constitutional reform towards the entire document.
So, you must be knowing Lakmal Hemachandra, nationalist member of parliament from the NPP. When she was questioned about why aren't these matters being expedited, she said that they have 5 years to do this. They can take their own time, at their own pace. Is that something that could be looked at very positively from the legal fraternity's background?
From the legal fraternity's background, no, definitely not. Because because what happens is the government should also realize that there is what you call a honeymoon period. Your popularity wanes after your first day unless you deliver on certain things.
Geoffrey, why is that in Sri Lanka, power really takes you to another level? Right before taking power, they are very different. The moment they come into power, everything starts changing. The table starts turning, and why is that?
Of course, I don't know whether it applies equally.
Is it too much of power?
Power corruption, absolute power corruption.
I think in the case of this government, they're still finding their feet. that's what I.
6 months after they're finding their feet.
There are a lot of issues that they had to face. It's okay. 6 months is good enough. They should have got cracking by now. That's what I believe. So it has been pretty slow. Like for example, abolishing the PTA, the Online Safety Act. Those should have been, and alternatives could have been found much earlier.
Whatever laws that are being enacted now are the laws that were brought forward by Ranil Wickremesinghe's administration,
Yes,
right? These are not the ones that are brought forward by this government itself.
No, definitely not by this government. And some of them that were done by the Ranil Wickremesinghe administration, like the Online Safety Act.
Online Safety Act.
Yeah. So, of course, I think the government has got too engrossed in other side issues, which it's losing its focus.
So right now,
too much of soap operas going on in.
Very quickly, Geoffrey, now, if you look at it, this government came into power with the anti-corruption slogan. In your opinion, you've been in this business for a long time as well, as I referred to all four of you as eminent personalities who have been in the bar for a long time, and you all have done a lot of service, yeoman service to the legal fraternity in Sri Lanka. In your opinion, what is more important right now? Is it fighting corruption or getting the country's economy on track?
Both I think are equally important. Fighting corruption, of course, putting also good governance is primary, because economic success will not come without good governance, which is one aspect is fighting corruption. So I think they're equally important.
So Harsha Nanakara a few years ago, before being elected as the Minister of Justice last year, came with a number of files, I don't know whether you remember, saying that they have a file full of a lorry.
No, double cab.
Double cab. Full of a double cab.
Upul has seen that double cab.
Geoffrey, tell me, where are these? Have you seen any of those files? Or?
No, frankly not. Nobody knows what's in these files and against who these files are. They speak about these files.
Don't you want to see these files?
If they exist.
Well, thank you very much, Geoffrey Alagaratnam, President's Council. And I'll move my attention to President's Council, Upul Jayasuriya. Upul, one of the biggest issues that Sri Lanka faces right now is the teeth in the bribery commission of the country. In your opinion, how competent is the bribery commission of Sri Lanka to handle matters of importance and fight corruption? Because Geoffrey said corruption should be in the forefront as far as this government is concerned. Maithri also agreed to this. In your opinion, how must or competent should the bribery commission be?
Before I answer your question, can I just make a comment on the question that you asked Mr. Alagaratnam earlier, that was about the opening of the so-called the floodgates, or whatever you call it, the Court of Appeal sitting on a holiday. You know, in India, very recently, this happened every other day in India, a certain election matter where the Chief Minister was going to take his oaths at 9 o'clock in the morning. So papers are filed in court, in the Supreme Court, at 10 o'clock in the night. The registrar empaneled the bench at 2 o'clock in the morning. The judges came, sat there, the lawyers came, and they made their argument. And they were arguing till about 6 o'clock in the morning, and they gave the order. Now this is the judicial activism that is being demonstrated by our neighboring country, India. So it's high time that we also start it in the same way. In the suitable case, not in every case. If there is something radical that's going to happen, why not? Because they are all paid. We are also paid. The lawyers are also paid. So let's go and do the justice by the person who is aggrieved by this so-called autocratic situation. And also about what you asked about the Easter bomb issue, I don't want to comment too much because there is ongoing investigation. There is some hand that have been working behind the scenes.
Hand?
Some hand.
What hand?
I'll tell you.
Who's
from what I have got to know about, in the Dehivala church, there was one guy who came with a bag, and about a week before at the church, St. Mary's Church in Dehivala, till has been robbed by some people. So they have deployed their own security system, and there was a retired police officer whom they have deployed there to look after the place. He was in civils. He is a retired officer.
So a church has done this?
Church had done that.
Better than the Sri Lanka police.
Wait, now these are retired police officer, right? Now he spotted this guy who came with a bag. Now he tried to question him, and then he said, no, I was angry with my wife, and then I left home and then came and all that. He said, okay, let me have your wife's telephone number. He gave wife's telephone number. Then the security officer telephoned the wife's number that was given. Then the wife answered and said, there are some people, the army officers have also come here looking for him. Now this is something. Then the army officer was given the phone. Then the army officer said, no, it's okay, you let him go. You let him go. So he was let loose. Then about half an hour later, the same army officer has called that person again. That the retired police officer. By that time, he had asked, where is that person whom you detained and then questioned? He was here, and then you wanted me to let him loose. I let him loose. And that's the fellow who went to that house in Dehivala, Tropical Inn or some place, and then bombarded himself. Now, army officers going to his wife's place, asking that civilian guy, who is now a civilian, to let him loose. So there is a lot to be investigated. I have a lot of confidence in the people who are now who have now taken over the investigation. Let's wait and see. Let's not come to various conclusions.
No, but how long would this process take, Upul? Now, we're talking about 2019.
Six years have passed now. So let's now wait at least for another 6 months more. Now the question that you asked me about the bribery and corruption issue and all. Now I'll give you a good example. In 2022, when I filed the matter against the then rulers, the three Rajapaksas, Gotabaya, Basil and Mahinda, and P.B. Jayasuriya, Nivad Cabral and co. on the crash of the economy, before we filed that case in 2022, sometime in July, we also filed a complaint at the Bribery Commission for corruption committed by these people. Then the judgment was given. Before the judgment was given, the Bribery Commission sent a letter saying, yes, we have decided to investigate this complaint. Judgment was given, finding fault with them for the loss of 693 billion rupees to the coffers of the government. Then Bribery Commission wrote to the three petitioners and asked them to come and make a statement. They went there to make the statement. They said they could make head or tail out of this complaint that they were going to make. So by that time, judgment has also been delivered. Another 3 months later, they were asked to come again. They went there again. Still, they couldn't understand. Some person who had no knowledge about accounting background was trying to go into this matter. As far as these petitioners are concerned, their knowledge was confined to the documents that were made available to them and which they have filed in court. So these are matters that need some highly skilled officers to go into. Now, so you can't expect the bribery officers to have the financial knowledge, background to go into this kind of matter. So that is why we propose...
At least individuals of financial background like auditors.
Yes, so we have proposed in 2024 February, we have proposed, I mean there is no IP rights on this proposal, anyone can adopt this proposal. To have, whenever, if there is an intricate legal matter, not necessarily to get the advice of the Attorney General. You can also write to the Bar Association, give some expert advice. Always, whenever there have been matters of concern, Bar has appointed people of high caliber. Let them be consulted. If so, in the meantime, if there is a financial matter, There are so many audit firms. There are so many top-class accountants. Why can't they be consulted? They will definitely give their services, professional services, free of charge. So now this matter, as I told you about this crash of the economy, now 2 years have passed, they are still sitting on it. Still sitting on it. Now that is why we have also proposed that any complaint to be made with the Bribery Commission should be investigated within a maximum of 6 months. 6 months. If it cannot be concluded within 6 months, then you must apply to a magistrate, convince him, and then get more time. So maximum another 3 more months.
Yeah, Upul, relevant to the case that you spoke about, 2022, on finding the 5 individuals who mismanaged the country's economy, what sort of steps can you take from this point onwards if you are to take some action against these individuals? Now we know that they are at fault, but what's the next step? What can the public do?
Yeah. Now, it is not only them. Now, there are so many public officers and also politicians who have been faulted by the apex court of this country for having violated fundamental rights. What happens next? Sometimes even the amount of money may be 25,000 or 25 million or 250 million that is been ordered that they should pay. Right? They will pay. But what happens? Still they are in the political fray. They contest. They get into power again. Should they be allowed to get into power? If they are public officers, should they be allowed to continue in public office? There should be a law brought in. If any officer, if any politician is found to have faulted by the Supreme Court, the apex court of the country, they shall not contest elections anymore. They shall not be qualified to hold any public office anymore. They should also not be allowed to hold office even in a private company. So we must bring in this, and also the trials that start. Now, okay, in the case of Keheli Rambukwella, the Attorney General has asked quite rightly for a trial at bar to be nominated by the Chief Justice. I'm sure that will be done. So why only that? Of course, that is a justifiable cause. But our proposal had been that whenever there is a fraud of anything more than 5 million rupees, 5 million rupees is a big amount of money, there should be a trial at bar to be appointed. And so that the trial at bar will have to hear the case day to day. And there shall be no postponements granted unless the lawyer drops dead. There shall be no postponement. It happens every other day now. You ask about the delays of the court cases in the Supreme Court and the Appellate Court. Sometimes a new case is being taken by senior counsel, and he sends a junior to the court and say, no, today the senior counsel is in another court on his feet. Why the hell did he take over the case? Why did he take over the case? Is it a done thing? Now, these are things that the court should look into, and that should never be tolerated. The lawyer saying, no, I'm in one court and another court and another court, that cannot happen. In India, not only in India, in any other country, they are never granted a date for the lawyer's inability to come to court unless there's a very, very personal reason. Either he's fallen sick, or maybe a family member is fallen sick, or something like that. Even that doesn't happen more than once in a case. So the case that is commenced, these proceedings should be a trial at bar. And also we have also proposed, now there will be a shortage of judges. We have proposed that let the retired judges be brought back and put them on a contract. Let there be 2 sessions, morning and in the afternoon.
I just want to pick your brain, Upul. We will talk about all this as we go along. We have ample time today on the show to discuss all this and more, but I just want to get some direction on the platform in which we will be conducting the show tonight. Let's talk about former Chief Justice Sirasa Silva. He spoke a few years after that he made the wrong decision with regard to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. So when someone of that caliber makes a statement of that sort, who held an office of the highest echelon of the legal fraternity in Sri Lanka, what sort of actions can someone take? That's a very serious comment. It's like someone going absconding free and you give them ample room to do that.
You may be wondering why I was laughing when you are asking this question from me. I charge him for contempt on this statement and another statement that he made. I charged him for contempt, and the case was taken up before a bench of 3 judges, and I made submissions. Went on for about a couple of hours. Obviously, his counsel moved for raised a technical objection. The order was reserved, and this happened about maybe 5 years ago. No, about 6 years ago. So the bench of judges reserved the order. Normally, these kind of orders are delivered then and there, but the bench reserved the order. And the chairman of the bench has now retired and gone. The order has still not been delivered.
Right. So,
are you serious?
I'm telling you. The order is yet to be delivered.
Right. So we'll talk about all this. Upul, one final question.
I'm still waiting for it.
Yes. So Upul, one final question, then I need to switch to Nigel. Upul, now, I don't know whether you remember, but we as journalists, we keep a tab on almost everything that happens in the country. I want to drag your attention back to 2008. Sarath and Silva's judgment on P.B. Jayasuriya not to hold public office. Do you remember this judgment? And several years after, in 2022, he's being held accountable for the mismanagement of the country's economy. How do you view all this? Now, in 2008, it was ordered that he should not hold the public office, and he apologized to court as well after 9 months being in office as well. And this he has given the counsel that appeared for Dr. Jayasuriya at that time was Faiz Mustafa. He was told to give an affidavit as well, and then several years down the line, 2022, he's responsible for...
He moved to withdraw that affidavit. He moved to withdraw that affidavit, and that was also before a bench of 3 judges. One judge, a lady judge, refused to allow... 7 judges?
Oh, yes.
Okay, 1 out of the 7.
Yes.
1 out of the 7 did not agree with the majority decision. She objected and then gave reasons why she is not agreeing to allow him to withdraw that affidavit, and the others decided to allow to withdraw the affidavit. That was the fate.
Right. So, what's happening? This is a law system that has to have confidence in the public.
There are some questions too with our seniority at the bar. Next year I'm completing 50 years at the bar.
Yeah,
we are unable to answer.
Right. So I want to ask Nigel this question. Nigel, we watched a lot of recently on Netflix. There is this O.J. Simpson's case, which is one of the biggest cases in the early 90s in the U.S. And we saw the manner in which how things transpired. Several years after, he was found guilty for the same murder that he was committed. Now, in Sri Lanka, we saw the impeachment of a Chief Justice, Sirasa Bandaranaike, and then we saw the manner in which another Chief Justice, Mohan Pirisu, took over office. And then several years after, it was decided by the Maithri Sirisena administration that it was null and void, his appointment, and then Sirasa Bandaranaike was reinstated once again. Now my question is, what about the judgments that he made as a Chief Justice of the country during this period?
Is your question about their validity?
Validity.
There's constitutional provision also.
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, there is no issue about their validity, because one of the fundamental principles of the law is, even if assuming there was a lacuna in Mohan's appointment, which I disagree with, there is the principle of the doctrine of necessity, which will also have to come into play in a situation like this. Besides, it was not only his judgment, he always sat with 2 or more other judges, and there would either have been unanimous judgments or a majoritarian principle that applied in each of those cases. So, as far as I'm concerned, I see no legal impediment in the legal efficacy or indeed the constitutionality of those judgments.
Now, Nigel, I know this question is somewhat of a very contentious issue with regard to the Bar Association of Sri Lanka itself. Just a couple of months ago, before the appointment of Rajiva as the head of the Bar Association, there was some sort of corruption allegations within the Bar Association, and the president of the Bar Association at that time was also looked at for conflict of interest. Now, when a body like the Bar Association, there is corruption happening. When a body of the bar, like the Bar Association, when there are issues within a group like that, which is supposed to uphold the law, which is supposed to uphold ethics and all that and more, who are we supposed to look at? Nigel?
Yeah.
I fully agree with you, but I do believe my colleague Geoffrey was part of a triumvirate of Sikhs who investigated this. And I must say, Geoffrey, correct me if I'm wrong, I did feel that you were rather soft in your findings. No, please. There should have been an emphatic denunciation of what took place. And what amazes me more is that the gentleman concerned can still walk into a court, be patted on the back, hail fellow, well met, and be treated with the same courtesies and dignities as if though he had done nothing.
But the problem is, Nigel, now, who are we supposed to look at? Now,
You are supposed to look at...
Now, when a body like that makes
I agree
mistakes,
with you.
who are we supposed to look up to and say, they will come for our rescue, when they itself are corrupt?
Look, this was an aberration. Congratulations, Upul, on your 49th year. I will be completing 40 years very soon. This was an aberration which is unprecedented in my time at the bar.
Yeah.
There have been allegations, by the way, of treasurers 10, 15 years ago, names are not important, allegedly putting their paws into the till. Nothing was proved. You're laughing. But this sort of allegation is, correct me, there are two former presidents, is unprecedented. So in the 39 years that I've been at the bar, this was unusual. So let this aberration be put aside. And I think it is for those who aspire to hold office in the Bar Association to ensure that the integrity and the vitality of the Bar Association continues without any blemish.
And if I may interrupt on that,
Yes.
if you look at
We'll
it,
come back to you, Geoffrey.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you. I'll give you an opportunity. But first of all, first round, I want to pick everyone's brain on certain issues, so it's easier for us to put some direction. We'll definitely come to a follow-up question to you on that. Nigel, Uday Gamampil appearing for Pilian at the moment. I've not seen Uday Gamampila in being an active lawyer over the last few years. He's been an active politician. One of the issues that he brought up during a press conference was the fact that when he was appearing or when he was speaking to Pilian under the who's been held under detention orders,
yes.
There was a police officer who was listening to that conversation. Now I want to talk about attorney-client privileges.
Yes,
how does this work? If someone is under detention orders, must or must not that conversation be between those two, or can an outside party listen to that conversation?
I don't think so. I know of no express provision of the law which permits a derogation from the general principle that when a lawyer is meeting his client, right, even if the client is under detention, that is a private conference, and there should be no third party present unless both parties want that party to be present. So to answer your question pointedly, for an officer of the state to be allegedly listening to this conversation also took me by surprise, and certainly I don't think that should have happened.
Right. Now my question is the role of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka in a situation like this. Now when there are issues that needs public attention, the Bar Association is very quick to respond. We've seen that during Geoffrey's time, we've seen that with Upul's time. We've carried statements of that sort on the public domain, we being journalists and so on and so forth. When an incident of this sort happens, now as you say, this is wrong, whether or not this is politically motivated or not, let's keep that aside.
Yes.
That's not important. But whether or not Pilian is right or wrong, let's keep that aside as well. However, when it comes to attorney law privileges, attorney-client privileges, shouldn't the Bar Association of Sri Lanka step up and say this is what is required by the law and this is what should happen, and we have to they have to press on this fact, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm afraid.
And why are they silent if that's the
I have
case?
no idea. I have not been on the Bar Council for the last 25 or 30 years. So I'm not privy to what transpires each Saturday of every month when the Bar Council meets. So, but I agree with you that this is something that ought to have addressed the minds. By the way, who is the Vice President now?
I think Renzi, no?
Is it Renzi?
Also Gunaratne.
Is he? No? I'm not sure.
Because usually the President has the discretion of picking his running mate after the event, as it were. So, but yes, the answer to your question is definitely
Right.
yes.
Now, Nigel, the role of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, because this is also under a lot of contention with regard to what was happening. Let's
Yes.
take a look at the last 15 to 20 years. There has been conflict of interest.
Yes.
Most of the time, the president of the Bar Association has had somewhat a political alignment with the governments in play as well.
Yes.
This is a big question mark. Let's take a look at Rajiv Amarsurya now sitting as a director at the Monetary Board of Sri Lanka. So how do you view this? Because we see Dumindu Langamua being the president of the National Chamber of Commerce. He's a partner in an audit firm in the country. And then he's the advisor, senior advisor to the president on economics. So there is a clear conflict of interest because he's privy to information that most of them are not. I saw Harsha De Silva saying in a tweet, if Dumindu Langamua was selling Coca-Cola, or if Dumindu Langamua was selling Fanta or something of that sort, that's okay. That's fine. He can do all those roles, but he's not doing that. He's a partner of an audit firm, which is an instance in which that conflict of interest really comes into play. Bar Association of Sri Lanka, conflict of interest. How do you view this?
Are you talking about Rajiv's role
As the
in his
monetary
capacity
board, as a member of the Monetary Board of the Central Bank, and also holding the post of President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka? If he has to take a side, which side would he pick?
Firstly, prima facie, I don't see any apparent conflict between him being president of the Bar Association and a member of the Monetary Board, for a number of reasons. Primarily, the decisions that he would take as a member of the Monetary Board, and I believe apart from the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and one or two other officials, there is provision for, shall we say, non-bureaucrats or non-members of the executive to be members of the Monetary Board by virtue of certain speciality, shall we say. So the issues that the Monetary Board would be looking at, I think, would not ordinarily fall within the framework of what the president of the Bar Association or what the Bar Association as an institution has to be looking at. It will depend on a case-by-case basis. And the answer to your question is quite simple. There is no side that Rajiv has to take. Rajiv has to act with integrity in whatever position that he...
But you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago that relevant to the lawyer, client privilege, we spoke about it.
Yes.
That the Bar Association has failed to even issue a statement.
No, absolutely. But
So
no, I'm
the
answering your question. I
integrity
don't...
is really questioned now.
You see, forgive me for saying this, but your question is predicated on the premise. You're assuming that there is a conflict, which I don't agree with. It will depend on a case-by-case basis. And it's for Rajiv to navigate this himself with integrity. And if he falls short of that, trust me, there'll be plenty who would bay about this.
Right. Also, Nigel, because we're talking about the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, when John Exter,
Yes.
who was the first governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, when he wrote his book, he said, if there is anyone's integrity is questioned, he cannot serve as the governor of the central bank.
Yes.
But we've seen over the years that Arjun Mahendra's matter, I'm talking about 2015, this government came into power saying, we'll bring him back to the country, we will prosecute him, we will take action and so on and so forth. And then we just heard a couple of weeks ago, the Singapore officials have said they are not going to extradite Arjun Mahendra to the country. Is it that this government is unaware about the laws?
I cannot presume to answer on their behalf, but it would appear that this is, my understanding is that Singapore has said that there appears to be some legal impediment.
There's no reciprocity.
Yes, there is no reciprocity for that. And also there's some legal impediment in the way Sri Lanka has set about this. So I won't presume to think that it's a lack of expertise. After all, the Attorney General's Department would be advising the government of Sri Lanka. Right? No, but there's another point. Would you give me a minute on this about the Bar Association? Because
let me open the floor for questioning from Shihar as well.
Can I just finish?
And you can finish, yes.
Can I finish?
Yes, please.
Because there are two presidents here, my colleagues on this panel. While the Bar Association historically, let's take the last 20 years, has been very adept at fighting for the independence of the judiciary if there has been any executive encroachment, real or imagined. Or let's take the case that you discussed earlier about the Contempt of Court Act, and acting with alacrity and rapidly getting the custodial or detention order against a young lawyer in an outstation bar set aside by the Court of Appeal on a public holiday or when the court was on vacation. But my concern is, I don't think the Bar Association is looking at far more important issues that are now, which we now have to grapple with. One is the delay of judgments in the apex courts. I think either Upul or Geoffrey referred to the fact that judges are retiring with loads of unwritten judgments or being promoted despite that, right? What about the allegation that Ranjan Gunaratne made in his speech when he launched his book at the SLFI, that there's a particular sitting judge in the Supreme Court who's getting one of his legal assistants to write his judgments. Now, this is an open secret. Why are we laughing? I have it on good authority that 4 judges of the Supreme Court wrote to the former Chief Justice, and he did nothing. This is causing great concern. This is now in the public domain. What is being done about this? Who are these young interns whom judges get? They either have a 3-year degree, invariably from a foreign university done here, and or law college. In the US Supreme Court, my daughter finished her JD in Australia recently, and Australia follows America, so I'm very, very aware of what goes on. You need to have a first degree before you enter law school in America, as in Australia. All of them have headed the top 4 universities, Harvard, Yale, Columbia. They have been, like Barack Obama's wife, editor of their respective law reviews. Their brains are first class. So what is happening in Sri Lanka? With this modicum of 3 or 4 years, you are having pups, literally, allegedly drafting judgments in the Supreme Court. And the judge concerned apparently baying about this to his colleagues. What a good job, how brilliant he is.
So, for full disclosure, all 4 of you are President's Counsel. You all have to take full responsibility for the statements that you're making. I usually don't say this, but then again, I thought because today's issues that we're discussing are very under a lot of contention.
I mean, it's kind of a contempt of court.
so be very watchful with what you're saying.
We will have to take full responsibility.
Right. So with Shah, just let me ask Jeff what he wanted to say.
So the point I'm making is, there are a number of issues right now, and the Bar Association is silent about that.
I really want to ask the question from both of you all, Geoffrey and Upul.
Yes.
So, you had been the president of the Bar Association in the past. So, there has been allegation of corruptions, there has been allegation of politicization. Now, if you see, for the past few years, we have seen the Chief Justice after retirement is being given a diplomatic post, and he or she accept it, right, and serve the existing government or the government on that date. What did you all do during that time? I mean, to basically to preserve the integrity of the judiciary.
There was no issue at that time.
No, you're talking the recent appointment, is it?
No, I mean, recent appointment,
but there was no, I don't know, Upul and I belong to a lawyers group because called the Lawyers Collective, and in anticipation of that, we said that it should not be possible. Now, if you look at the private sector, if you cannot, once you leave a company, there has to be a cooling off period. You cannot have anything to do with it.
Exactly.
So we have, in fact, I think Upul also has been advocating for a long time that when a judge retires, he must get his same remuneration as pension. He cannot accept any position with the government except, let's say, if he does arbitrations, private arbitrations and things like that. And he cannot, because otherwise it gives a color to the judgments. So this is the position we have been advocating from, I think, before 2015. But so unfortunately what happens is the politicians have been exploiting this and appointing various chief justices after retirement into various diplomatic or other positions, or as consultants or
advisor.
Yes.
I think it happened recently, not before.
The last chief, even previous one was made a consultant advisor to one of the presidents.
Ashoka Silva.
Yeah, Ashoka Silva.
Yeah. Then recently was the UN ambassador.
Yeah.
Answering the same question that you asked me, during my tenure, I had the bigger problems to handle.
That's right.
Rather than these, touch and go situations. I would say the bigger problems was Shirani Bandaranayake has been kicked out unceremoniously. Right? The constitution required that if a judge is to be impeached, there should be a committee appointed, and that with the committee report that should be tabled in the parliament, and on that there should be a vote taken with regard to the expulsion of the judge. Now there was no committee report that was tabled before the parliament and sought the approval of the parliament with the majority to expel her.
No, I don't think you're right.
Can you please?
I don't think you're right on that.
Let me explain this. What happened was, what they brought before the parliament was the appointment of a select committee. By that time, the select committee has been already appointed. Select committee has given the verdict. That verdict was not tabled before the parliament and sought the approval of the house for the removal of the judge. So at the 11th hour, Lakshman Kiriyal, who was I think the chief opposition whip, he raised the issue with the speaker and said, "Mr. Speaker, what have we taken up for debate in this house? What you have taken up is the appointment of a select committee." Then he immediately looked at it and he saw stars.
The order paper.
He adjourned the house and then went into the chamber, and then probably he would have consulted probably the president or whoever, I don't know. And he came back after about maybe half an hour, and they said, "No, we have gone too far. We'll take the vote." So they took the vote not for the removal of the judge, but for the appointment of a select committee, which has already been done. So there was no
Legality.
motion passed to remove Dr. Shirani Bandaranayake from the position of Chief Justice. So therefore, there was no vacancy for another person to be appointed to that position.
So this is the reason why she was appointed later. Right?
She not
Under
that
Maithri.
appointed. She was asked to continue to discharge duties. She was asked to continue to discharge her duties. That's what happened.
So what's the position of Mohan, Chief Justice Mohan Piris?
Well,
Was he a Chief
his
Justice?
appointment was not regularly done. There was no vacancy to.
Was it invalidated?
There was no to invalidate. There was no appointment.
Justices.
There was no appointment.
Exactly.
Made.
So
There was no appointment made.
So
That was
what
technical
happens in this
position.
situation? This is what I asked Nigel,
Because people
what about
didn't
the
understand
judgments that was
at that
that he
time.
proceeded over and all that?
On that question, I believe there is a provision, also constitutional provision. The invalidity in the appointment will not affect the judgment. There is a specific constitutional
Invalidity of a appointment of a judge.
judge will not affect in any way what he has done while in office.
Right, so I have another question now. Geoffrey, now, during the recent past, now, I've been a journalist for...
answer that? The second, another one was the appointment of whom some people call him Pissupusa and all that. One judge called Upali Abiratnam. Upali Abiratnam was also appointed to the
Again,
bench.
I'm just highlighting the fact that you have to take full responsibility for the statements you all are individually
He
making.
was appointed to the bench.
We'll defend you.
Please don't make...
Sanjay will defend you. Don't worry. No charges will defend you. Don't worry.
Please don't make...
We'll defend you.
Yeah, you will have to tell something. If Upul is mentioning a name of a particular judge, that is not contempt of court, that is defamation of the judge. and the judge will have to sue him for defaming him. If Upul is wrong.
If he has a, if he has
say it like
We are absolving ourselves. We are absolving ourselves. You can.
if you look at Ranjan Vijayaratna's statement, was a general attack on the Upul is attacking one judge.
My answer. After he was appointed, for about 3 months, he didn't have his ceremonial sitting. Normally, when a judge is appointed to the Supreme Court, he always has a ceremonial sitting. He waited for 2 other judges to be appointed. I can't remember exactly the 2 other names. Maybe
Anil Gunaratne.
Anil Gunaratne and maybe
Sripavan's
maybe Sripavan. And Justice Sripavan was being appointed as a Chief Justice at the same time. So all 3 of them have been now welcome. I happened to be the president of the Bar Association at that time. Now I have to welcome all these 3 people. So this is something
knowing you, you would have not done it. Knowing you, you would have not done it.
I welcome Justice Abru and Justice Anil Gunaratne wholeheartedly.
What about
And I didn't see the 3rd person there.
He opted not to see.
I opted not to. So I did what I could do.
Yes, you can. Nigel.
So that the message was sent loud and clear.
Right.
Message was sent loud and clear.
Upul, I'm subject to correction on this because I have seen the 2-volume report of the Parliamentary Select Committee, which as time elapsed on the Shirani Bandaranaike impeachment, as time elapsed, its members dropped away. You first had Mr. Sambandhan leaving, then you had John Amaratunga leaving, and you had Vijita Herat leaving, if memory serves, and ultimately it was just the SLFP, Kiriel also left, and it was the government members that concluded with it. I have seen that commission report, and I think, to my recollection, I'm subject to correction, Upul, it was tabled in Parliament. What Lakshman Kiriel pointed out was that the order paper had got it wrong. The order paper had referred to the appointment of a select committee, whereas it should have been for the committee.
So what was on the order paper only that was taken up for debate?
But the report, to my knowledge, was tabled in Parliament. It was tabled in Parliament. Besides, gentlemen, why are we forgetting a very important thing? Dr. Shirani Bandaranaike's impeachment. She challenged it every step of the way. And a bench of the Supreme Court, I also appeared in that case of 5 judges, ultimately held that her impeachment was valid.
Well, I want to comment on
No,
that.
I know. But all I'm saying is, but in relation to Mohan Piris's purported removal, I've written about this. So
we all know that was a kangaroo court.
Right.
That was a kangaroo court.
And that was
on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court.
The committee was
The committee.
The committee was kangaroo court. The people whom she who had cases before her and who had not
Can I
got any
finish what I'm trying to say?
relief. They are the people who were sitting in judgment on her.
Yes, Nigel.
And then what happened? They came with those same committee members on the select committee, came to the CJ's house. Outside there were people in a hut. They ate kiribat with them. The judges who went into the conduct of the Chief Justice came on the road and then ate kiribat, celebrating her removal. I mean, just imagine, is it kind of a civilized society?
I think Dr. Bandaranaike was ill-advised by her legal team to have walked out.
I think that was the right thing that she should have done, and she did.
I think that was a staged walk out. Somebody spoke about some people being media hounds and wanting to have publicity. I think that was a mistake. She should have stayed the course, continued to say, I don't have sufficient time, or there's a violation of natural justice.
That was said time and again.
No, I know that. But she shouldn't have walked out.
Right.
Right? And besides, as I said, there is a 5-judge unanimous decision of the Supreme Court which has upheld her impeachment. And getting to Mohan Piris, how did they remove him? I've written about this, so I'm not saying anything that I have not taken up publicly myself. A letter was sent by the Secretary to Maithri Sirasa in Sinhalese. I've seen the letter. In fact, I might have a copy in my files. To the effect that there was no vacancy, hence your appointment is illegal, without going through the motions. There is no way that you can remove any judge of the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court in terms of Article 105 or 107 of our Constitution without them being impeached by due process. So Mohan Piris was removed by the fiat of a letter from the Secretary of the then President without an impeachment process.
Right. Again,
he never challenged it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I advised him to, but he didn't, for reasons best known.
right. So just to make sure that we, for full disclosure, all 4 of you are Prisoners Council. Again, take full responsibility for statements you are making. And again, you all can have a debate or agree to disagree to points as well. So we respect that that opinion as well. So I just want to quickly speak to Maithri. Maithri, we're getting a lot of questions today on the show with regard to what sort of actions need to be taken and all that. So one question is for you, Maithri. I'll pose these questions momentarily to the panelists as we go along. I'd like to know what happened to the 100 million that was paid by former President Maithripala Sirisena. Did it go to the public treasury or given to the victims?
It was given to it was deposited in court.
Deposited in court.
Yeah, so
No, but to be distributed to the victims if memory serves.
Yeah, so has that been distributed to the victims?
That I don't know. That I don't know.
I'm aware there is some ongoing process where they're trying to do some divisions, but I'm not sure.
That has been credited to a fund.
To fund,
That was being
and there was some committee which was supposed
Order
to
is
lot.
deposited in court, so it has been deposited in court.
And there was a committee which was appointed to look into who the victims are, what they suffered, and to oppose.
So I'm getting a lot of questions, so I'm trying to pose these questions to all the panelists as we go along. So Geoffrey, we have a question for you. Now, the question is, since of late we see a lot of judges rescuing themselves from cases. Usually, in our opinion, we think judges are independent and has to take decisions based on their best interest and the country's interest as well, and based on the law of the country. Why is it that judges recusing themselves from court cases?
No, I agree with that view that you cannot just lightly recuse a person from a case, because just because I know somebody does not mean that I should recuse, unless you are unable to impassionately handle it. Now, if I know somebody very closely, then I would think the public perception would be that, I mean, in case I hold in favor of that person, that it was because I knew that person. But just because there had been a passing acquaintance or something where you feel that it won't affect your judgment or you won't be biased, then you disclose and say, look, I know who this person, because I met this person, but I have no problem about hearing this case. Do any of you all object?
Exactly.
That's it. But maybe there might be some instances where judges have lightly recused because of the personality or something like that.
But so, can that be done?
That should not be done. No, that should not be done. A judge should recuse. When a judge recuses, he should give his reasons, not just recuse, and it should be a reason which in his opinion he feels he cannot be objective enough, or the public perception would be that he's biased. But if he says, look, I have met this guy, or I knew this guy in school, in the sense that I have seen him, but I had no close relationship with him because we studied together, or he was in a higher class than mine, I used to meet him on the playing field. Do you all have any objections to my hearing this case? So either party can decide. And judges do it now. Judges do it now in the Supreme Court.
Now, in one or two of those instances, now when the indictment had gone to that particular judge's court, social media activists have taken upon themselves and started bombarding the judge with various allegations. So when that started happening, I suppose the best course left for the judge is to recuse himself from the case, because otherwise,
if a judgment is made, probably people will look at it in a biased way as well.
Absolutely.
So you can't blame
the judge and to the judgment that
the judgment. So you can't blame that judge who recused himself from the case, because I mean, if social media and if social activists are saying, okay, this guy is so and so, this is this, this is that, I mean, what do you expect him to do?
No, but of course, I would go back to the point that you were mentioning. You expect a judge to be impartial and not biased. So, like, okay, social media may say certain things, maybe it's right, or they have some reasonable fear. Then the justice system comprises the parties involved. There are two lawyers. So, what do you have to say about me? Because it's up to the judge ultimately to also decide, because we expect judges to be impartial, free of bias, and they have to have a certain degree of integrity. So if they disclose to both parties, the social media is saying this, I personally feel I have no difficulty in this. Do either side have?
Right. So also, Geoffrey, now with regard to this recent case involving the acting, the former IGP of the country, whose matter has now been taken up by a committee.
He's not a former IGP, he is suspended IGP.
Suspended IGP, and all that and more. There seemed to be somewhat of a media gimmick behind all this. Look at the statement that is being made by the Attorney General's Department in court. We've not seen matters of this sort before by the Attorney General's Department. We see they are very point blank, they are very steadfast in their approach and all that and more. But now political statements are being made. We see this a lot. Why is it?
You're talking of the criminal matter related to the suspended IGP.
Yes.
Yeah, there should be a lot of caution in that type of public statement, because giving press interviews has become very common. Lawyers come out of courts and start making big speeches after a case, and it becomes a spectacle. So I think there should be a little more caution in coming out with these type of statements. It's one thing to quote what is said in a court of law, but to make broad statements to the media is not something that should be, that I would advise.
Maithri, now justice delayed is justice denied, right? Now in Sri Lanka, if you see some cases, it goes more than 30 years, right? Especially these land cases and things like that. Now this is one of the main reasons why people don't trust, or they don't have confidence in the justice system. What have we done to basically kind of reduce this delay so far?
Directly answering your question, we have not done much. We have bringing in various amendments to the Civil Procedure Code, to the Partition Act and things like that. But what needs to be done, or what is the best case scenario, is if the judges get more involved in the cases, because most all cases have only one or two issues. You take a case, a civil case, it has one or two issues. So if the judges get more involved and speak to the lawyers and say, okay, what is the issue? How can we first of all settle it? Now there is legal provision for that, but unfortunately those provisions are not being made use of. Now there is this pre-trial conference which has been introduced recently. Now the pre-trial conference, you are supposed to get all the documentation in place. Otherwise what happens is, when you are in the midst of a trial, you don't have the documents, then you get dates after dates too, and that gets delayed. So now when the pre-trial conference, you have to have all the documents, what you are relying on, all that. And at that stage, the judges are empowered to speak to parties and see whether a settlement can be pushed upon. Now I feel if that type of thing happens,
but what is the international best practices to speed up the cases or reduce the delays in other countries?
If I may say,
please.
I say we are talking of alternate dispute resolutions. That's something that you can't be clogging up the courts with all these things all the time. Like if you look at things like, there's like they call commercial mediations, where you have a win-win situation, where you get compromises, because courts take, as you say, 30 years, even if you take 5 years. There's money, time. Of course, some people say lawyers block this because lawyers want to have a day in court. But then
that's a popular allegation against lawyers. All the lawyers.
What we fail to realize is there are lawyers who are specialized in mediation, in conciliation, in arbitration, who earn more than when they go to courts. So, and because the client is happy, we can finish this thing in 3 days in the space of 2 or 3 months. And there is a win-win situation. So we have not looked sufficient.
Why isn't it so popular in Sri Lanka?
Our culture.
No. But the reason is arbitration itself is very, very expensive.
That's true.
Arbitration is very, because the center you have to pay for it. Then there are two arbitrators and the umpire.
That is your talk of commercial arbitration. But if, for example, like your mediation boards, which are set up. Now in Sri Lanka, that is funded by the state. Now there, whether you can have a little more teeth in mediation board proceedings. Now if you have, like in other countries, they have accident tribunals, remote accident, medical negligence. It goes, and poor judges, how can those guys decide medical negligence on medical evidence? So you have alternative tribunals. Those can be challenged in an extreme situation. But the solution is not to run to courts for everything. That culture has to change. Now, Maithri was talking about arbitration. Even our arbitration is running like a court of law now.
Yeah, it's
because
very expensive.
you go and sit, you pay, then next date is 4 days away. But you go to Singapore, you sit in arbitration, those guys come, they are ready, all the papers, they are finished in 2 weeks,
So-
order in another 3 weeks.
So
I'm
I think
getting a lot of questions.
Geoffrey and Maithri both were talking about private litigation. Take the private litigation against the state. This is atrocious.
Atrocious, correct.
Atrocious. There are judgments that are given by the original High Court. Then, with a drop of a hat, they appeal without knowing whether there is any merit that can be challenged, that can be taken up in the next court. Maybe if it's a commercial High Court, you go to the Supreme Court. Whether there is any merit or not, they challenge. Right? And then what happens? The meter keeps ticking. There is a judgment given, say you pay 200 million in the original court, you don't pay that, you go to the Supreme Court, that appeal takes 10 years. During the 10-year period, you are paying legal interest on that amount, or damages, or every month you are adding on. Finally, for the 200 million that has to be paid on day one, Attorney General is also, with a drop of a hat, he goes and files an appeal. They must be made responsible. If it's a private counsel, he can be sued. Why not the Attorney General's Department? They also should be made responsible. Then what happens is, finally, you end up paying 2 billion for the 200 million. Does anyone ask a single question about it from the state officers? The state officers who have caused this loss to the coffers of the government should be charged for corruption. If you by any act of yours, you don't have to be benefited. Corruption interpretation is if you cause a loss to the state. There's a loss caused to the state. Instead of 200 million, now you are paying 2 billion. So charge them for corruption.
Upul Express Pearl,
Yeah.
classic example. They gave the wrong advice,
Yeah.
and ultimately, I don't know.
It's more than wrong advice.
No, that's right, but the wrong advice was given for a particular reason.
Right. So I'm getting a lot of questions, as I said before. I want to pose these questions to our panelists because I think the conversation that we are moderating today is very interesting to most of them. So a question to Nigel. So we have a ardent follower of Face the Nation, Srinath Fernando. He has posed this question to Nigel.
The lawyer.
Srinath Fernando.
Srinath Fernando, I think, is a...
Sorry.
Yes, he's somewhat technically savvy with
yes,
regard to law as
He
well.
writes to the paper.
So-
Yes, I think I know who he is.
But the question to you is, Nigel, recently I sent a letter to Honourable Minister of Justice to review the standing orders of Parliament. I urge the Honourable Minister to consult the Honourable Chief Justice, Honourable Attorney General and Honourable Speaker on the procedural justice when judges are summoned before Parliament. I would like to know the opinion of the panelists as to whether standing orders of Parliament should be reviewed in terms of its conformity with the constitutional rights.
Of course. I think that goes without being said. Parliament, after all, is one of the triumvirate and the separation of powers. Their internal procedure is governed by standing orders, and standing orders cannot violate the Constitution. It's a simple...
This again happened in the same case, 69 of 2023. That's the case with regard to the holding of the local government elections, where Justice Sirasa, it was my case, I was arguing before him, Sirasa and two other judges gave interim order. Right? When they gave the interim order, the Parliament threatened to summon them before the Select Committee. Then what happened? The entire legal community, not only in Sri Lanka, all the international bodies started howling. Then they pulled back and they didn't summon them, though they were threatening to do that. And that threat was coming not only from the Parliament but also from the head of the state.
Fundamental to
It was
this.
appalling.
Fundamental to this is everybody is under the myth that Parliament is the supreme body of the country.
It is the court.
No, it's
They are all parallel because Parliament represents the people, the courts represent the people. Sovereignty is distributed for checks and balances.
No, but in the meantime, the court decision will apply even on the Parliament.
Yeah, so let's not delve too much on each subject because again, as I said before, a lot of questions are coming in. Maithri, now there is this famous case about Batalana that has been taken up right now. This was debated in Parliament, all that and more. Why not take up what happened in 88 and 89? Many individuals were killed. Why isn't this being discussed? Is it bias?
Yeah, because this government thought that with Batalanda, they can get some political mileage, and that has backfired. And to cover that up, I think they bought this, the exposition of the tooth relic, and now no one talks about Batlanda. Because when they brought the Batlanda issue or the report and wanted to discuss it, the allegations towards them was much more than what was in the Batlanda report. And this Batlanda report was, I think, about 15 or 18 years old. I mean, nothing has happened. It's most of the findings are hearsay. So nothing will flow from there.
So when one finger is pointed at someone, four fingers are pointed at you.
Towards you. Towards you. Now look at the destruction these people did. The destruction this government did during the 89-90 period. So they are not paragons of virtue. They also have contributed to the bankruptcy of this country. They try to come and portray themselves as if the rest of the politicians have ruined the country, but they also have contributed by the destruction of public property and killing of people.
Right. So, Upul, this question is directed at you.
You seem to be very uncomfortable when I'm talking against the government.
I'm trying to take it as many questions as possible. You know, I'll definitely give you some time, Maithri, don't worry. In the closing remarks,
he's laughing a little louder.
So,
is he trying to convey something?
Right. Upul, you've been actively involved in politics.
I was.
Not anymore.
There are no politics now.
But you were number 8 or number 9 from the
BJP
that's
why that has no application now anyway.
They didn't appoint you, no?
He's considering joining my party.
That's that.
Samir, he's considering joining my party.
Right. So, Upul, this question is directed at you. Now, between 2015 and 2019, we saw the Financial Crimes Investigation Division being established. Individuals from that office went to Dubai to find out about ill-gotten wealth by politicians, and they were sent back to the country saying, first of all, pass laws in your country and then come back to Dubai and discuss. Now there are laws that have been enacted, the recent law that has been enacted, Proceeds of Crimes Act. Can this law be used to nab those who have took money out of the country, like Uganda, Dubai, Seychelles, so on and so forth?
I must confess that I have not studied that particular
No,
law.
but you can't bring it
But I must also say, having said that, the initiation of criminal proceedings against those people whom we say have robbed and then parked their funds outside the country should happen first. Should happen first. How can we then otherwise go to another country and then say these people have robbed this money and then bring it back to our country? I mean, we all saw the other day there a particular person who was supposed to have sold some lunch packets in Dubai or someplace, going and buying Dubai Marriott, right, for $225 million.
Lunch packet?
That he has said that in a particular newspaper interview.
No, we
that
know
he started his life by selling lunch packets there.
No, but
as far as we know, Upali Vijayawardena started selling by Narambik and then he became a huge businessman. But by selling lunch packet to go and buy...
no, but Jayasuriya Rajapaksa and the Desi Archie's matter, they must be the best known Manik Mudalalis in the country.
Yes. So maybe another Manik Mudalali has gone and given him also another Manik Mal, and then with that money he can go and bought. So like that, so these are not, it's not so difficult to go into these matters. It's not so difficult, right? So that person is here. The person who is supposed to be owning that hotel is here. So ask him. Then thereafter he is supposed to have brought $75 million into this country for another investment. Another $200 million for another investment. Where is this money coming from? Right? Why can't you investigate these people? I mean, it's not a rocket science. The investigations, I think there is, I must also commend the present regime for not interfering or not allowing, bringing any restraints in the investigations. That's good. That's a good trend. But that's not enough. That's not enough because the investigators are not sufficient. They don't have that kind of technical knowledge. They must be helped with that kind of...
One question,
Sure.
Nigel. I'm very sorry I'm interrupting you a little bit too much, but I'm just giving you around 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to respond because I want to pose these questions to the panelists as we go along. And Nigel, Ranil Wickramasinghe wanting to speak to Pilihan. How do you view this? and be denied by the government subsequently?
Well, if he accompanied Gamanpila in his capacity as a lawyer.
As junior.
Yes.
Gamanpila is junior.
No, of course, Ranil was called prior to Gamanpila. But if he sought to do that in his capacity as a lawyer, that is one thing. But in his capacity as a former president and or a beneficiary of Pillaiyan's political support at some point in time, no. Why should he?
So the government action in terms of that was right, correct?
I think it was justified, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Geoffrey, now if you list the key 5 reforms, to basically to have in the justice system, what will you say?
My fundamental reforms is constitutional reform. It's because unless you have a proven a foundation for a good democracy and good governance, laws on corruption and governance, and definitely the abolition and curtailing of the presidency. Those are my priorities. And one other aspect, because we've been always talking about the delays in prosecution, this government promised it. We talk about the Attorney General being advisor to the state, and there's a conflict of interest in his prosecutions, the delays. What about the Director of Public Prosecutions? We have forgotten about that. We don't have an independent Director of Public Prosecution. That person is independent of the Attorney General, should be an independent person who can seek the assistance of anybody rather than send reports to the CID, commission reports. He gets all this information.
But this is what this government has promised, right?
But this is not new office. Because that's a very easy thing to do, more than constitutional reform. To set up the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions for these special things, like even if you talk of Easter Sunday bombing or anything. So I think firstly constitutional reform, because people don't realize the importance of it.
Definitely.
For a lot of our people it is bread and butter and coconuts and all this and rice. But unless we have a solid foundation, proper institutions and processes and independence based on constitution, public prosecution, abolishing of the presidency and eradication of corruption, bribery and corruption law, and also recovery of assets. Those are my priorities. And economics, let it look after itself. As a lawyer, I think those are fundamental.
I'll come back to Nigel. Upul, last time you were on the show, you spoke about corruption in a deal involving Lanka Transformers Limited. Any update on this?
Nothing heard. That's the update. Complaint has been made to the Bribery Commission, CID. They're all supposed to be inquiring into it. That will take a couple of years, I suppose.
Years?
This is the biggest ever fraud that has taken place. Not this bond scam. This is about 10 times the value of the bond scam. This is the value of the share that have been robbed by 3 people there is more than nearly 30-40 billion.
Our viewers are very attentive. Upul, you came on the show around 7 to 8 months ago, and they still remember about this Lanka Transformers matter. So, do you want to shed some light on that, or is
the light that I can shed is that the complaints have been made, and the people who are making the complaint, we have only given the legal advice. They are going in circles, but nothing is happening because 3 people have robbed the shares of the company, which is worth. And finally, they have taken over the entire control. Now, people are talking about Karyalapiti and all these places. They are all manipulated and owned by 3 people, 3 private individuals.
3 people?
3 private individuals.
So, Nigel, you want to add something? I interrupted you before.
No, I just want to advert to an article I wrote a while back where I quoted a one-to-one discussion with the late Dr. Colvin de Silva, taking off on what Geoffrey just mentioned. And in any situation, whether it's the executive or the judiciary, right, you need people of integrity. I remember asking Dr. de Silva, as a young law student, at this discussion. He had finished a long speech, and the late Mr. Sam Vijay Singh, a former Secretary General, introduced me to him. So I said, "Sir, would you concede that your constitution of 1972, the provisions on the judiciary, were inferior to the current constitution of 1978, which has restored the separation of powers and restored the independence of the judiciary?" This was Dr. Colvin de Silva's response to me. young man, you may have all the constitutional and legal provisions for judges, but at the end of the day, it is the integrity of each judge that matters. He may be clothed with the greatest protection, but if he doesn't have integrity, you will have no justice. The wisdom of that man still redounds in my mind every time I go before benchers or judges, and let's not name them, who we know have already predetermined the case.
Then I'm going to ask you, Nigel, don't worry.
Because that's going to bring
I
you to
won't.
contempt.
I won't.
That will be contempt.
I won't. I won't.
So please don't ask.
Maithri is keeping me on watch.
Because then you're a willing participant.
He'll give you a warning. Maithri, now, this government before the election has given a lot of promises, right? Now, which is now being questioned. Do you see the reforms on the justice system being taken and proceed?
No. I can't see them ever coming out with that.
Why?
And
Why do you say that?
there is no political will to do it. There is no political will to do it.
And if that be the case, what have they done?
No, and the other thing is 6 months is a long time. And now, for instance, now they are saying, okay, they need look at Donald Trump. Within 6 months, what chaos he has.
But how many measures he has reversed?
No, correct.
Now today we heard that Elon Musk is removing himself from the Dodge.
And also there's a news that he is going to reverse the Chinese.
Yes, there was some news about
So how much of reverse? At least Andrew Kumar Sanak is not doing that.
No, correct. But the point is,
how many U-turns Gotabaya Rajapaksa do?
No, 6 months. What is the constructive decision they have taken for the progress of the country? 1. 2, we have to start paying the loans in 2026, 2027.
28.
28. No, then the sovereign bonds and things like that, 28. So what are we doing to bring the country to that position, our productivity? I mean, these are questions, I mean, these are things he will have to face during his tenure. So if he is not preparing himself for that, and this is the best time for him to do it, this first 6 months. So if he is not preparing himself for that, if he has no plan for that, if he is not calling for any ideas or any opinions with regard to that, how is he going to deliver the goods? He can't.
Upul, now the government has 159 seats in the parliament, right? 2/3 majority, right? Special majority. But we have not seen many laws being passed, right? We have seen
only IGP's Desabandhu's act has been brought in.
No, the Proceeds of Crimes Act, and then the election, local government election, and the budgets, right? Those are the key laws we have seen. Why is that? Why do
Leopold, the reasoning as to why they have not done, I would like to bring up further. Now, with regard to the economic transformation law that was brought in by the previous government, that's a welcome, on the face of it, it's a welcome situation. But as far as this government is concerned, they are also going on the same direction with regard to the investment process in Sri Lanka. But what have they done to attract the investors to come to this country? And that has been made better, I would say. But whereas from one-stop shop, they have now created many one-stop shops.
But their justification is that they are eliminating the corruption, right?
The corruption to be eliminated, I'll tell you, the only way you can do it as far as the investment process goes is to online approval process. So there is no one-on-one meetings. You don't see the face of the person who is submitting the application. Online process. So now, earlier, when you say one-stop shop, once the BOI gives the approval, under the law itself, there are so many other, like the Department of Immigration, Inland Revenue, then environmental, customs, all those laws, the exchange control, the effect of those laws are being exercised by the BOI. Now the BOI is out in the dumps, right? Now, what is happening now? If it is not approved within a matter of 1 month or so, some time period given, then it has to go before the minister. Why the minister? Minister is a politically appointed person. He will say Madura Penna, all kinds of stories. He doesn't understand or think about what is happening there.
Is that process still on?
That's what I'm saying. That is what I say. That law is there, but the law is not being effected. Now, Fortunately, it has not been effected, but you must look at it with a fine-tooth comb. Now, when they brought in the law, I have my regard for Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe. He had a love to bring in the process, but finally what happened was he had brought in the draft that was given to him by the IMF. Whereas this is going to create a huge problem. Now, there are two institutions. One is the Port City law, other one is the BOI law. They are in conflict. They are in conflict. The Port City is also, they are trial and error. They are sitting and going into each and every transparency, this, that and that. If you go into transparencies and all that, not a single investor is going to come into this country. Of course, at the time when Jayasuriya brought in the BOI in 1978, I was the first legal officer of the BOI at that time. He said at that time, these money laundering things were not there in the same force as it is today. He said, let the robber barons come. We are open. Right? So we are not asking the robber barons to come now, but we have to invite these people to come. You can't ask for how they earn the money and all that. Of course, if it is coming through a banking source.
Upul, you make a very important and pertinent point with regard to the Port City Act that was brought in a couple of years ago. I recollect when this act was being brought into Parliament, Minister Ali Sabri was Minister of Finance. He said that approximately 20 to 25 billion US dollars will flow into the country as a result of this. Just tell me where this money is.
Will come into the country.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Somewhere there. I'm also still looking for it.
No, but
I can't see it anywhere.
I see land. I don't see buildings. Why is that?
Not a single building in there. They are going through their new chairman and all these people. They are very honorable people. They are very sincere people. But I don't think the regulations have been now promulgated. There again. Then the Port City can give tax holidays, but the BOI cannot. So there you are creating a discrepancy, right?
No,
so the BOI...
You were also the head of the BOI for some time. Tell me a few investments that has come into the country during the last 6 months as government has been...
Nothing. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that it was not in the papers or anything like that. I have my own information. Nothing has come into this country, nothing even in the pipeline.
But they signed a $2.8 billion deal with China.
When you sign these things, that doesn't mean that this money is coming to the next
Sinopec was anyway in Sri Lanka. Sinopec was anyway in Sri Lanka.
Sinopec have been there, they are not...
That's not a...
When I was there were 5 companies that were going to do LNG. They were making proposals. LNG, power generation. 5 companies. And those investments were in the region of about $4 to $5 billion. $4 to $5 billion. And that was a real investment. But all the people, the Ministry of Power, at that time, I'm talking about 1915 and 1917 era, nearly 2.5 years period. At that time, all the people, the power boys who are now in the supply of power, hydropower and all that, they objected to it, including Ministry of Petroleum objected to it. Right? So if that was given, I mean, we are not making the investment, you only have to negotiate with them the cost of power, which they agreed to do at that time 7 cents per US cents per unit, which was coming at that time, conversion rate, it would have been about 11 to 12 rupees. But today is much higher than that. But still, it is much cheaper than going for the other sources of power. Right. But we never allowed them to make that investment. When the investor comes to our doorstep, we kick them out.
That's right.
When we go around and then go seminars and this, that and the other, and invite them to come, say we are laying the red carpet. You lay the red carpet. The day you sign the agreement, any investor, I'll guarantee you, the day you sign the investor, for any investor, he is treated a pariah. He is treated a rogue. Then he runs away. Right. For a month, I used to cancel more than 15 agreements. Why? They couldn't implement it. Why couldn't they implement it? Because everywhere they go, wherever they go, money talks. Otherwise, they get sick of it and then they walk away.
That's the biggest problem.
Right. Maithri, if you were to give some advice to the Minister of Justice right now, what would that advice be?
One, they should recruit good judges or people who have got experience in the legal profession, practicing without going on exam results. What is happening is now when they call for applications, there are people who are not practiced. They are settled themselves in various government departments. They have the time to cram the exam, they come and pass the exam and they come in. 1. 2. There are many archaic laws which need to be amended. 3. The judges now will say in criminal courts with regard to bail, each court the procedure is different. Each court the manner in which bail is granted is different. So that they'll have to synchronize it into one system. Now, for instance, in Colombo, there is Justice, the High Court Judge, Mr. Patabandige. They have started a system where within 14 days you file your papers, e-filing the papers. Within 14 days the case is taken up, and they decide whether bail is granted or not. So that's a fantastic system. But when you go to, we'll say to Gampa or to Kalutara, that does not happen. Why is the discrepancy? So now the Justice Minister has been practicing in these courts. He has seen this happening. I can't understand why he can't implement that. And the other thing is, now even as a litigant, to get a photocopy or a proceedings, when you go to a courthouse, what they say is computer is broken or there is no toner. So why has the Judicial Services Commission or the Justice Ministry why do they have to get involved in providing photocopy machines and computers? They can outsource it, and so there are so many things, Samir, which can be done to make this process fast. And the other thing is, the judges also should be every maybe 1.5 years or 2 years resummoned, given a retraining with regard to what they are doing. There has to be some kind of checks and balances as to how they are giving judgments. Now, judicial audit. And the other thing is, Samir, now maybe 3 weeks ago, Justice Sirasa and another Justice Amarasekara, after having received so many complaints with regard to a magistrate's conduct, they visited that courthouse and they saw to their own eyes as to what this magistrate was doing. That sent shockwaves among the magistrates and the judges. No, so you need practical people like this to go into the matter with passion and to put the system right. Otherwise, what is going to happen is, Samir, we can talk till the cows come home. No changes are going to take place, and the system is not going to change. It will be like this forever. And another one, they should bring in some kind of law, or the judges should be told that a case must be called every 2 months, so that at least during a year there are 5 to 6 sittings. Now, if you take the Supreme Court, a case is called only once or maybe twice a year. You take the Court of Appeal, of course, it is faster, but the Supreme Court, the apex court of this country, you file a case, I mean, sometimes it's called only once or twice a year. And having increased the amount of judges, people are going through a hell of a lot of hardship.
I want to say something about this.
So, in your closing remarks, Nigel, what sort of reforms is needed to the justice system in the country? You can say.
I think there are several reforms, but if I may just advert to what Maithri said, on a visit about 10 years ago to the US Supreme Court in Washington, I saw with my own eyes the entire Supreme Court sits. They don't divide themselves into separate chambers. The red light and the green light. That is, counsel are given 60 minutes each.
Half an hour.
60 minutes, or let's say half an hour.
25 minutes and 30 minutes.
But 60 minutes in all, I believe, because they also have, I think, a rejoinder. Whatever the time that is allocated, right, the amber and the red lights work, and you are cut off midstream if you do not stick to your allocated time period. Now, the Supreme Court recently, just after COVID, my colleagues would recall, started asking us, Mr. Hatch, how long, when they were fixing a case, how long would you take for your argument? And they started giving us slots, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Well, I'm afraid that has also now gone by the wayside. I don't think that is being implemented.
Some judges do that.
Some judges do that. But still, I mean, I have been there for 11 o'clock case, and lucky if it was called at 3, right? No, that's okay. I mean, if I take the date, I'm there for the whole day. But I think it's about time our apex court started introducing strict time limits, ensuring that we file our written submissions in time, they read our written submissions, do their homework, and are prepared to dispose of our cases. Bench orders.
Having said that,
Sorry, there was a time when bench orders were given on a leave to appeal or FRs. Now increasingly they are also deferred for time. A date is given for an order which could, in my view, have been disposed of over the counter.
Half a page order.
Half a page order. Can I give you all a personal experience? I was chairman of the University Services Appeals Board, which is the judicial, quasi-judicial body under the Universities Act, where everybody from a coolie to the Vice Chancellor could come to us if they had a problem with their employer, which was the minister. There was a celebrated case from the University of Jaffna, right? Both sides represented by counsel, the university by state counsel. I delivered an 8-page bench order in their presence. One of the reforms that I did from my experience in the customs was to tell the stenographer, you're going to come and sit next to me. I set up her computer next to me and she took down the proceedings, questions, answers simultaneously. Sri Lanka Customs is excellent at doing that. Why can't we do this here? Right? I dictated an 8-page bench order and I said, look, you'll have heard me. I decided in a particular way. My colleagues agreed. And I said, please give me just 24 hours to get this draft, clean up any infirmities in the language because the stenographer obviously would make some mistakes. And I delivered it in 24 hours.
That can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done.
It's a commitment and the passion.
The bail order can be dictated from the bench itself.
Bench itself.
So, in your closing remarks, very quickly, I'll give you 30 seconds.
And also,
to wrap
you
up.
spoke about the criminal bar. I don't practice, but I want to talk about the civil bar. And I'm sure my colleagues who do their civil practice will agree with me. When a civil case is filed, the defendant is served with a set of papers, and the summons tell you that you have to come with your answer on a particular date. That never happens. You come on the date and you get 3 or 4 months for your answer. Invariably, you get a second or a third time.
No, you get 3 dates.
It's about time the Judicial Services Commission told our district judges and High Court judges, please, 1 date only.
Thanks a lot, Nigel, President's Counsel. Nigel is also an attorney at law. Upul, in your closing remarks, I want to pose a question, then you can sum up. In the recent past, many individuals are absconding court. Deshabante Nakon was one of them. Then we saw the man in Virchau, Prasanna Ranavira, who was a former member of parliament and a state minister in the previous government. He's still unaccounted for. He's still missing in action. So, what's happening? What's the role of the police department in matters of this sort? And even this was a matter that was raised by the Maithri judge as well to President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva, who signed the affidavit that you are your petitioner that you're presenting on behalf of. And then the President's Counsel Ramesh De Silva said whatever at that point as a response to the judge's question. So just to understand, tell me what's the role of the police in matters like this?
If I answer that, I may also complete the answer that was given by Nigel, which I fully agree with. Also, the blame goes to, with regard to the delays that are taking place, blame goes to the lawyers. Blame goes in a big way to the lawyers. Senior counsels, sometimes they have the habit of taking 5-6 cases in 5-6 different courthouses, and everywhere the juniors are sent to move for dates.
Yes.
And sometimes it happens even the first date when they are retained and to come to another case, they go to that, send another junior and say, no, today my senior is in another court, he's on his feet. Now, this should never be allowed. This should never be allowed, and also there should be no postponement of cases other than on, which I said earlier, other than on personal grounds, very personal grounds. Coming to your question with regard to, I think this is more a question for Maithri more than myself. Well, this has been happening, and I can't tell exactly the reason why, whether it's the inefficiency of the police or whether the efficiency of the absconding accused, but as far as Deshabandhu was concerned, that's a bit too much, it went too far. There is no way how he can be hiding for so long, and then for him to appear all of a sudden in the courthouse, having gone through so many roadblocks or maybe the highway entrances, exits and all that, and then to appear unperturbed, and then he's been submitted, and then finally he was remanded. We must congratulate the learned magistrate.
But that is a charge of attempted conspiracy to murder. I don't know how they got bail.
Yeah.
Charge of conspiracy to murder.
Conspiracy to murder, and also this is only one case. There is another case that is coming up in Dehiwala,
right.
where he steamrolled a hotel on the beach. So I mean, he has been up to no good. He has been acting. I mean, we have brought up all these matters on the before the particular bench on which we challenge his appointment. Very appointment when he was appointed to the post of IGP, and the commendable decision that was given by the learned judges, the 3 judges, they went on hearing the parties. All parties were given a hearing, and at about 8:39 in the night only they gave the order suspending his appointment. So I mean, finally the courts have come to our rescue. So sanity has prevailed at last.
What's the way forward, Upul, in your opinion?
So
what
the
must
way forward is a judicial activism. Now that again, I mean, you may not have heard instances where the 3 judges sit in the courthouse till 9 o'clock of a day. Now there again, now the other one was the holiday. They heard the case of a lawyer. Now this is the judicial activism being displayed by the judges, which is most welcome, which is the need of the hour today. I think they should move away from this traditional way of thinking, and then you have to know today we have no time. If that's the case, maybe tomorrow, maybe why can't we go on till late in the night?
Exactly.
Okay, sometimes they say the excuse would be the staff.
Stenographer has to catch the train
or whatever.
That cannot be an
That
excuse.
cannot be a reason. If that is the case, give her a special Uber taxi to go home.
Exactly.
There must be alternate method of transportation, because that cannot stand in the way of administration of justice. So that is why even the police officers, I mean, police are also made to suffer in many instances. Right? The promotions are being given. Even recently, some promotions were given. ASP's appointment. I mean, the courts have to interfere every time. There are about more than 15 cases that were filed in the Supreme Court. They have granted leave to proceed. Some are to be granted leave to proceed. They have challenged these appointments because people have lost confidence in the executive, in the manner in which they have been arbitrarily acting in giving these appointments.
Let's not forget, a former Minister of Justice said that 80% of the OICs that are appointed are political appointees.
Yes. So just imagine the kind of justice that they are expected, or rather the laws that they are expected to implement.
Right. I just want to now switch to Geoffrey Alagaratnam, Prisons Counsel. Geoffrey, if you were to sit down with President Anukumar Dissanayake and told him to give some advice as to how he should maneuver these corruption charges that they spoke about prior to the election and in election fora and platforms, what would that advice be?
Well, my advice is that he'll have to set in place an independent, capable mechanism. One of the things we have always advised is a director of public prosecutions who would be independent, provided the necessary wherewithal to get to source assistance, not only from the police, the Attorney General, from even international agencies, because today dealing with crime and corruption is an entirely different ball game. It calls for a lot of technical expertise. So I do think rather than merely speaking about these things and saying we are going to bring these people to book, you have to get on with it rather than handing over, because there is so much of material already. For example, if you take the Easter Sunday, there are so many committee reports. Now there is no point giving a report to the CID. You might as well have a person who studies this whole thing and sees the way forward, who is an independent body, because as Upul was mentioning, police is slow to do this, police is slow to do that. You spoke about 80% of the appointees being political. Unfortunately, the public service and the police have been exploited by the politicians.
This was stated by the former Minister of Justice.
Yeah, have been exploited. So it's a pathetic situation. So to make the police independent will take and capable will take some time. But in the meantime, how are we going to go forward? So I would suggest that the urgent cry, as the President has promised, is a director of public prosecutions.
Very quickly, Geoffrey, I just want to pick your brain on this. One final question to you. Now, the COPE committee has been operational or established in 1978 in the country. And since then to date, no charges have been filed against any individual. It's a public gimmick. They speak about it, they bring them to the parliament, they talk about it, it's on media, but no action has been taken. Why isn't it this government go ahead and strengthen the teeth of committees like the COPE Committee, the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, independent bodies for that matter?
Well, you don't have to duplicate the system. The COPE Committee makes certain findings. If you have a Director of Public Prosecutions, he will take over those recommendations and he will sift through the material and prosecute where appropriate.
But
so,
earlier it didn't happen.
Earlier it didn't happen.
The other thing
You're
is
talking
when
the old director.
when
the old Director of Public Prosecutions under the AJL did not have that level of independence.
No,
And when Parliament is dissolved,
What he
the
says,
COPE committee, the
there
whole
should be
proceedings
the
also
COPE
get
committee should also have a
malfunction.
representative from the
So
Attorney
that is a natural
Right,
death.
right. So,
From what you said, the COPE committee should also have a representative from the Attorney General's department. So then and there. And the police.
yes, and then they can take action immediately.
Yeah, then
And
if
that
action-
should be
action
they should be able to continue, irrespective of Parliament being dissolved.
Yeah.
They should be able to be. What happens if Parliament is dissolved, then the whole proceeding stops.
No, but
So,
parallelly, if there is a Attorney General's Department representative and a police guy, then they can carry on with that parallel
But if
inquiry.
we say the Attorney General's Department, they seem to be having a conflict of interest, and the police at the moment doesn't have the necessary wherewithal or the ability or the will to prosecute. That is where it comes in, where there is an overarching responsibility of a Director of Public Prosecutions to use all this material. We don't have to duplicate the processes.
Right. I now switch to Maithri Gunaratne. Maithri, I'm going to ask you a political question. Now, you're the only representative.
There is one question I need to answer, which you asked Mr. Jayasuriya, where I think we need to. You said that when people are wanted as criminals or for criminal actions, they are hiding and absconding court. Now, that one reason for that is, Samir, is because time and time again, since for the last maybe 4 or 5 years, the Court of Appeal has been giving stay orders or staying any arrest of persons. So as a result of that, what's happening is if anyone of some substantial repute is there, if there is a case against them, what they try to do is before going to the magistrate's court, they go and try their luck at in the Court of Appeal. Now, in the latest judgment of Justice Lafa, he has very clearly said that the Court of Appeal should not interfere in the normal functioning of the magistrate's court unless there is some kind of grounds which is going to shock the conscience of the court. If the magistrate has been palpably wrong or is arbitrary, completely doing his own law, then you can interfere. But otherwise, you should not interfere. So with that order, it will put to rest that these people going to the Court of Appeal and getting these temporary orders and not anticipatory bail, getting temporary orders and filibustering the magistrate court proceeding. So moment Deshabandhu was refused bail there, or the Court of Appeal dismissed his action, he had to jolly well go to the magistrate's court and surrender himself. So that is one reason why these people are absconding.
Right. So Maithri, a political question to you now. From all these 4 gentlemen, your political party is the only political party who will be contesting at the upcoming May 6th local government election. I'm going to give you a minute to appraise the public as to why they should vote your party in at the next election.
No, we are contesting only 5 local government bodies, so we have not been very much present in this election. But what I'm saying is, I mean, even if you don't vote for me, you need to give a very clear message to this government. 7 months after the president has been appointed, 6 months after the government has come into power, they have not been able to deliver their promises. They are always relying on lies and deception. So there is a limit. The public will have to tolerate this. Lies and deception cannot go on forever. So therefore, it is time that the people of this country, the voter of this country, will at least give this government a message that we are sick of your lies and deception. We are going to vote against you. If you don't get your act together, out you go in the next election.
Maithri, one final question to you. One of the allegations levelled at lawyers is the fact that they are also trying to mint money in this process of delaying judgments being heard. How do you want to counter that?
No,
because when someone, when an ordinary person comes to a lawyer,
there is some truth in
they
that.
say, you know, these lawyers are going to fleece me off. You know, they are going to always ask for later dates, and as a result of that, the lawyers are getting more money, and the innocent civilians are at the brunt of it. No, so how do you want to counter that?
The point is, Samir, if you continue to do that, I mean, no client is going to come to you. So there is a responsibility of the lawyer also to finish the case fast and early as possible. So it is easier said than done, but I would say that there are delays, but it is not only on the lawyer. There are witnesses don't come to court, judges don't come to court, other counsel fall ill. So there are several court staff, several interpreter modalities are not available.
Proceedings are not ready.
Proceedings. So there are several factors which contributed. It's not only the lawyers, but in the good old days it used to happen, but now it is getting less by every passing day.
Right. It's better now.
It is getting better because they are also bringing in various laws and tightening the checks and balances.
Right. Thank you very much, Nigel Hatch, President's Counsel, for joining us this evening on the show. Upul Jayasuriya, President's Counsel, for joining us on this show tonight. He has always been a very vocal about the situations in the country. Thank you very much, Geoffrey, Alagaratnam, President's Counsel, for joining us for the very first time on Face the Nation. And thank you very much, Maithri. It's always a pleasure to have you on board.
Don't worry of any contempt of court charges.
We'll
defend you. So
thank you very much.
Sleep in there.
Thank you very much, Maithri. I'm very happy that you would. But we are, as journalists, I've been doing this is my 22nd year, Maithri, so I'm very careful in treading on very thin waters. Geoffrey, very quickly, thin ice. Geoffrey, very quickly. Now there is a famous politician's son about this law degree matter. Is he a lawyer or is he not a lawyer?
He's a lawyer, no?
He has taken his oath.
He has taken his oath. Yeah. So he's technically a lawyer.
No, but there is no all hearsay evidence. No, I mean, in fairness to him, there is nothing concrete which has come forward.
But when he was asked about to mention about at least two penal code provisions, he couldn't do it.
That's not a fair thing to ask.
That's not a judgment.
That's not. You can't. That's not a.
Right. Anyway, we'll leave it at that.
Lawyer is not a person who knows the law. He's a lawyer. Law is a person who knows where to
find
look for the law.
Look for the law.
So, Upul, just a political question to you also. What is the opposition doing now in this whole equation?
No, I must ask a question as to what the government is doing in this whole equation. And what are you doing?
The question is, what is Sirasa doing? Because Sirasa was normally the opposition. My other question, you are not answering that question.
We'll come back to that after the show, Maithri. Thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight. You send your messages via WhatsApp to the panelists today on 076 656 5353. It was always a pleasure to take these questions to the panelists. I hope we did justice by you for watching the show and getting some answers across. Thank you very much, Shihar Rani's our independent journalist, joining us this evening to pose questions. I leave it tonight with the quote as I always do. If justice is causing suffering or pain, it isn't truly justice. Take care and good night.